Ladies and gentlemen, happy to have this next guest on our show for the very first time, joining a list of UFC contenders and champions that we've had. This man has an amazing fight coming up in the welterweight division, and he's one of the more exciting fighters out there. And I'd like to welcome the man they call Semi The Jedi, Mr. Matthew Semelsberger. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you very much for having me on, guys. Third time's the charm.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate you, man, and I really appreciate the clear communication. You know, for those that noticed, we were working on having Matthew on the last couple times. Things didn't work out. Always we want to say that Matthew was nothing but courteous and respectful, and I appreciate that. I got to say, Matthew, it's amazing how many people in the UFC are courteous, respectful guys like yourself. Not all of them, for sure, but a lot are. But I think that that you definitely are a guy that impressed me as being respectful, keeping communication going, and having a good way of talking. And I appreciate that, man. I got to say, either you had parents that were good and that taught you to be respectful, or you just took it upon yourself to be that way. Which is it, or was it both?
Definitely the parents and the upbringing, and that extends to my whole family and even my teams and all my friends and everybody. So it's like a full circle thing, man.
It's important. I like that. I've always been that way as well. I think, you know, my parents taught me well. And from the beginning, I always realized that, you know, no matter who you're talking to, you know, there's just never any cause to be disrespectful. And it doesn't get you far in life. And I think some people think it does. And some people have a gimmick in high level of sports that for a short while might take them somewhere. But eventually just enough people really hate them. And, you know, I think Conor McGregor is kind of, you know, on that thin ice now, and to the point where now that he's losing fights and he's even being more of a disrespectful guy, a bunch of people are pretty much just saying, you know, I don't like this guy. I don't care what he does. Even if he wins, I don't want to see him. I don't want to hear him, you know, and you know, and that's unfortunate. But yeah, no, it's a good thing. Do you find in your experience, I know your team, you say, and your friends and your family, you know, carries that respectfulness along, but how has it been in your journey here in the world of MMA, let's say especially in the UFC, with opponents that you've been matched up with? Have you found that most of them can see that you're a respectful guy and they keep it on that same level, or have you had a few opponents that fell into that trash talking kind of disrespectful camp?
No, I think for the most part, man, every single opponent I've ever had, even from amateurs all the way up to pros, have been all respectful. But yeah, definitely, like some fighters are pretty verbal, and they like to like talk a lot. But for me, man, I'm just kind of like, I think it's like I'm kind of got that stoic look in me. So yep. Like people know I'm dead serious when I'm there. So I think that kind of like, which like in all seriousness I am, you know what I mean? It's not just a front I'm putting up.
Right.
You know, I'm locked in, so I think they can see that as well, and they kind of feed off that. And you know, they can go the reverse too. Like I've never had anybody really talk too much trash to me. Like maybe like aside from like interviews and stuff like that. Like for instance, like when I fought Jason Witt, like he was critiquing some of my things with my fight. It's not like he wasn't being like really disrespectful about it, but I guess you could say like talking a little bit of trash in a way, but
right.
But it was nothing, like I said, man, I've never had anybody really get personal, I guess is the best way to put it. And going back to like the whole McGregor thing, like it's all fun and games, but when you get personal and you're talking about people's wives and stuff like that, like beforehand, he was talking about the opponent himself. Like, right. I'm going to butcher this man. I'm going to do this to him. I'm going to do that to him. You know what I mean?
Right.
One of the funny ones was when he was talking to Chad Mendez, and he's just like, have you even heard of wrestling, buddy? And he's just like, he's like, I'll rest my balls on your face.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Like that was like kind of funny. You know what I mean? But now he's talking about why he's being in DMs and stuff like that. And it's like, man, like that just takes it too far, man.
Yeah, I agree. I really do. You know, I remember with all that talk that he did against Habib, and then I remember afterward, and if you remember that craziness where Habib jumped over the cage and jumped on Dylan Dennis. I remember what Habib said when people said, you know, why with these other guys talking so much trash and in Connor's corner, these other guys, being disrespectful, were you going to jump on Dylan Dennis? And he said, I like this about what he said. He said, a lot of these guys in Connor's corner were my dad's age. And he said, I'm just not going to go and hit those guys. And he said, so the first young guy that I saw that was acting crazy, calling my name, was Dylan Dennis outside the cage. And he said, so that was it. He said, as soon as I heard that, and I looked at him, I said, all right, that's a young guy. That was it.
Yeah, that was like a scary incident too, because Khabib was a guy that, what I mean, talking about his background and him being all about respect and stuff like that. Like, it takes a lot to tick that dude off.
Yeah.
And to push him to that limit, crazy.
Yeah, without a doubt. Man, it's funny, at 29-0, I got a feeling if he was American, because I think we look at even numbers maybe more than in the small country of Dagestan where he's from. I have a feeling he's American. The guy would have had to hit that 30, but it had to get 30-0 just because it's like a clean, even number. And Khabib, I guess, just doesn't worry about that. But if you had to predict, do you think we'll ever see him again in an MMA fight?
I don't know, man. To be honest, probably not.
Yeah.
And I think that goes along with like Khabib's, like his culture and his own beliefs and stuff like that, which I don't claim to know everything about what he believes in, but you know what I mean? I think with like, what was it, after his dad passed, I think he was talking about how his mom didn't want him fighting anymore. And it's like, that's a very strong family, like tribal bond that he has with his people. And I think that goes for Dagestan as well. So I don't see him doing it, but I mean, who knows? You know what I mean? Maybe he'll get a blessing from his mom or get a blessing from his people, and they'll tell him to go back for one more. So who knows, man? We'll see, but I don't think so.
Right.
If I had to guess.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about your fights. You have Martin Sano a week from Saturday, and I really appreciate you being here on a Tuesday, which would be just, 11 days before you're fighting. So that's an interesting card. That's actually a great card on the 25th. I guess that is the International Fight Week. Some amazing title fights. The return of Nick Diaz. And funny enough, this guy, Martin Sano, is part of the Nick Diaz camp. So let me ask you, obviously you know the game well, you're experienced, you're a great fighter. Some people that are really confident in their own skills don't even bother to do any research on their opponent. I think most do. I think even the most confident fighters, the better fighters, I believe, do some research. But what have you done to look into that? I mean, it's such a weird thing. He seems like a tough guy. He doesn't have a lot of fights, but he's fighting on a Nick Diaz card. You almost get the feeling that Nick Diaz said in his negotiation, something like that, my negotiations are X amount of money, and that Martin Sano fights on the same card as me. Do you get that feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a possibility, especially when you look at he hasn't been active for almost 2 years, or like 2 years on the dot or something like that.
Right.
I mean, it's something that I did kind of like ponder, but very briefly. And it was one of those things where I was like, even going back to when I got offered the fight, like they said Martin Sano, and I didn't even know who that was, but then they said UFC 266, like live, and I was like, I don't even care who I'm fighting.
Exactly.
Let's do this.
You take it, without a doubt.
Yeah. So, but in terms of like studying him and stuff, like you know that he's training with the Diaz bros, so that's like I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I've told this to people who I've talked to about this fight already, and it's like, for all I know, this dude could have been grinding it out for the last 2 years with Diaz, and he's made a lot of strides on everything. So trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, I really don't care. I've been training my ass off. I've been training extremely hard, and I've been worrying about my game and what I'm going to go in there and how I'm going to impose my will on him. So I do think it's important to study your opponents and study the game in general by watching fights and stuff like that. And that goes back to like when I was in college playing football. That's when I realized how important like film study was. But the tricky thing with this is like in college football, or even like whatever football level you're talking about, you're in season playing a game every week. So like say you're in like the 5th game of the week of the season, and you're scouting your opponent that week, you have 4 weeks of film previous to that. of them playing. So very fresh, very recent. Like it's good, pretty good info to go off of. So talking about fighting, it's harder when you have opponents who haven't fought in a while and you don't know too much about them, because even the film you do have, which like I think I watched his last fight was like 2 years ago in Bellator. It's like I can get a little bit off of that, but I can't trust it too much, because
Right.
2 years is a long time.
Right. Yeah, it is. Question for you. Obviously, everyone trains to fight the toughest guy they can imagine, but is it, I mean, I'm sure you are as well, but you almost wonder, like sometimes if a fighter is matched up against someone else that everyone thinks he's going to beat, is there sometimes a temptation for some fighters to say, you know, I'm just not going to hit the grappling that hard this week. I'm not going to hit the jiu-jitsu that hard this week. I'm not going to hit the striking that hard. I don't really need to push myself beyond, for this guy, because I can be like 80% and beat this guy. I would bet you most fighters would not do that, but do you think that happens on occasion, or is the temptation there for some people, you think?
It 100% happens. That's for sure, man. Like it definitely does. But at the same time, like you're totally right. The majority of fighters, especially at high levels in the UFC, all those dudes and those girls are 100. Yeah. Like they're in it too. They're 100% in. You know what I mean? And the people who aren't, they get weeded out pretty quick. You know what I mean? And that's something that like. Not that I play off fear a lot, but like, you know what I mean? Fear kind of like drives you to do things, to go outside your comfort zone, to grow and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I talk about like some of the anxieties I have, you know what I mean? It's like something like that. I do worry about losing like the fire and stuff like that. But I mean, like I said, I have a lot of good people around me, a lot of motivating and inspiring people that I've met on this journey. And the fire burns strong, man. And, you do have those days that are hard to get through, and I'll be the first to tell you, like I'm not perfect. I've missed days, I've missed sessions and stuff like that because I overslept over this and that. But you know what I mean? The important part is just getting yourself back up and just being as consistent as you can. So nobody's perfect, man. We're all human. But the best of the best, the legends that get made are the ones who fight through that stuff, and they just, doesn't matter if they're tired and they're run down, they're going to get themselves to the gym, or they're going to get themselves some training,
Without a doubt, that's what it's about. Speaking of that, man, give us some names of some people that helped you along the way and that inspired you, and maybe some of the people that you train with today and some of your coaches.
So I'll just start with my coaches. So Coach Sebastian Ramirez, he came all the way out from Milwaukee a few years ago to take over the striking program at Crazy 88. And he came in with like this mentality to just, really build up the fight team. And he's done like a phenomenal job with it, man. That dude is just, that dude will be on top of you on detail after detail after detail. And he doesn't do it like he doesn't heckle you or anything like that, but he's on you all the time. And you need somebody like that, you know what I mean? Because like I used to coach a little bit, and it's like sometimes it's almost like when people are messing up over and over and over and over, and it's like you don't want to be like that guy, be like, you're screwing up, you're screwing up.
Right.
He does a very good job of being on top of us consistently, but being in an inspiring and motivating way. So shout out to Coach Sebastian. Then we got Coach John Del Bruges. He's a former professional MMA fighter, former welterweight champion in Shogun fights out here in Maryland.
Cool.
That dude, it reminds me of Habib, man. His grappling is so good, and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu now, and I think I want to say he's definitely medaled in some IBJJF worlds. So I'd have to get his credentials, but the dude's a freaking beast, and he's been pushing me ever since we started working together. So thank you for Coach John. All my Crazy 88 fighters, Josh Jackson. Gosh, there's so many of them. So we got Josh, we got Bubba, we got Matt Hicks, we got Lewis, we got Solosi, Khalil, like all those guys at Crazy 88, the fighters, the amateurs, the up and comers, all those dudes inspire me because I was once in their shoes, and it's cool to see those guys grow and get these fights, especially since everything's loosening up and the fights are getting back on. So it's really inspiring to see all my teammates succeeding and getting their opportunities as well. And then lastly, on the team perspective, I want to shout out Clinch Academy, Luke Reinhardt. He's a head owner and head instructor out there. That's the gym I started at way back in the day. And I think I fought all the way up until my 4th pro fight. I was doing all my work at Clinch until I started splitting time at Crazy 88. And then now I'm pretty much full time at Crazy 88 now, but still much love to my Clinch fam. I'm in there, once a week if I can get in there to do some jujitsu and stuff like that. But most of my work is getting done at Crazy 88.
Where's that located? Where's Crazy 88 located? Is that Maryland?
Yeah, it's Maryland, but it's closer to like Baltimore. So Frederick is like the area I live in. Mm-hmm. And then Frederick's where like Clinch is, so it's like about a 10-15 minute drive, and then it's about a 45-minute to like an hour drive over to Elk Ridge, which is like it's on the border of like Howard County and like Baltimore County, so closer to Baltimore.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Did you sorry, I was going to say, I'll let you go back to that, but I was going to say, you mentioned you played football. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on how that may have helped prepare you for MMA, but go ahead, man. Shout out your last couple guys, because I want you to be able to give them credit.
Sure. My big brother, Michael, my little brother, Sambo, my sister, Lauren, of course, my mom and my dad, all my family, Kylan Moore, Kylan Lewis Moore, one of my best friends, probably if not my best friend in college, and he was a college football teammate of mine, inspired me to take the path to the UFC. And then let's see here. Oh, my homie Anna Chippy. Anna's from Crazy 88. She still is, but she was battling Ewing sarcoma, which is like a cancer. And she's been killing it, man. She's been doing so well. And she had just gotten surgery not too long ago. And they removed pretty much all the cancer. And she's in rehab. And she's just killing it, man. So awesome. Shout out to Anna. I love you. You're the best. You're a fucking warrior. And you inspire me to keep grinding when I'm tired and run down, because I know it's nothing compared to what you're fighting through right now.
God bless her. Yeah, absolutely. Very true, man. Well, those are good shout outs and good credit for people around you. So football, I remember back when it was Brendan Schaub was fighting and Matt Mitrione coming out of The Ultimate Fighter. And I think those were the first times when they started saying, look at these guys. These guys were football players. And but they had that athleticism. I remember they would say they got the athleticism from football, and they kind of get the idea of takedowns and contact, and but I think that they don't really mention that very much. And I think a lot more guys, as you know, come from only a wrestling background or only a striking background. What do you feel football has brought to you as far as what it's done to help prepare you to be as good as you are at MMA, and do you think it's an equally viable background to these other combat sports, or how much do you think football can be helpful to someone to get into MMA?
Football was huge for me, man. And athleticism was the key word there. So you know what I mean? Like athleticism, like I don't know the pure definition off the top of my head, but like athleticism, it's like one of those things where it's like you can, no matter what the rule set or whatever the game is or whatever, it's like you have this adeptness to move your body around at high speeds, and you know what I mean? It's like all the different core principles that go along with it. So football does all that for you, man, and you do it at a high speed. So I'd say a very viable option. What's up, Sambo? A very viable option for anybody who wanted to get into combat sports eventually. And it also depends on what the position you play. Like I played the perfect position, I feel like, for transitioning over, and I played like strong safety,
right?
And no, like Dominic Reyes played, I think, free safety. I forget what college. It was like a 1AA school, right. But I think you look at Dominic Reyes, and I'm comparing because he's a bigger guy, right? He's a 205. I'm a 170. I'm a bigger 170.
Yeah.
So Dominic can move around really well, and he's super athletic, and that makes him super dangerous in the fight. And I think that kind of goes along with me as well, with all the things I've learned and what I've basically ingrained in my body from playing football. And it's big time, definitely from playing strong safety, because, and especially in college, because like I would be either on like a slot receiver playing pass coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And having to deal with like this tiny little slot who runs like a freaking 4.5 or a 4.4 40,
right?
And I'd have to be able to keep up with this dude. And then the next play, depending on what the offensive formation was, I might be down stacked on like the tight end setting the edge. So I'm taking on like these bigger linemen and stuff like that. So it's almost like being out in the open, using a lot of footwork, and then going right in and hand fighting, basically like clinching in a way, or like sumo wrestling. So I kind of learned the best of both worlds in college, particularly, man, because I got really fast, really quick, and really good with my feet. And then also at the same time, I was taking on all these like 300+ pound linemen and stuff like that when I'd be blitzing, and I'd have to learn how to basically hand fight and spin and juke and this and that. So it just helped me develop my athleticism on like all levels. So I think that was the big benefit with football for sure. But I will say the transition to MMA, it's like one of those things. It's a completely different realm. So it's taken a while for me to adapt. But it's definitely one of those things where I think being a football player has sped up that process exponentially.
Absolutely. It's given you the great groundwork, or there's another word I had in mind, but kind of preparation for it, and basically it makes sense. And would you feel then that if someone was going to play football with a possible thought of MMA, that being a defensive player would be the thing to do, like you were?
Yeah, I mean, I think defense would be solid, because I mean, like, it's kind of like not like a running joke. There's a bunch of beasts on offense and stuff like that, but like I think like the real beasts play defense on football, because we get to tackle, we get to take people down. You know what I mean? We get to lay out the big hits and stuff like that. So, especially if you want to be more aggressive, but at the same time, it's kind of teaching you to be reactive and teach you, like almost like that, like reading, I guess you could say, reading an offense, which translates to like reading an opponent's movements. I guess the best thing I can explain is like, we used to say high hat, low hat. So whenever I watch football, I can tell if it's a pass or a run pretty quickly, because all you have to do is look at the linemen and watch their body language.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? If they're high hat, they're sitting back to back pedal and pass protect.
Right.
You know what I mean? If they're low hat, they're probably coming out to block. So that's probably a run play. So the other thing, you're learning things like that, which end up translating over to fighting, because you're picking up on cues from other opponents and stuff like that, and body language, and it translates, man, for sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. It really gives you the blueprint for what you're doing. Did you then start to get into some striking or wrestling or jiu-jitsu in those early days as well, or when did you go from playing football to doing these combat sports that you now use in MMA?
Yeah, so I was about I think like a ninth grade or 10th grade when I actually first started training at Clinch, and I was just doing like an basic MMA fundamentals class and like basic jiu-jitsu classes, and there were no gi classes too. I wasn't even wearing a gi yet, so I did that style of training, more like MMA submission grappling type of stuff, pretty much all the way from 10th grade till about when I dropped out of college. So even when I was in college and I was coming home from breaks and stuff like that, I was popping in and getting as much training in as I could. And I think summer going into my sophomore year of college, I had my first amateur MMA fight. So that kind of was like my style of training for a while, up until I dropped out of college. And then I kind of started training everything. So I did some, I would get into gi, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I got into like kickboxing. And then when I got over to Crazy 88, I started doing Muay Thai and stuff like that. And then also wrestling as well. I have some connections still from high school And then also Matt Hicks, who's also a crazy 88 MMA fighter. He's a professional with us. He is a Division One wrestler himself, and his whole family's a wrestling family. He coaches, so I go in with a bunch of high schoolers. I think it was like the school he coaches at is like top 50 in the nation or something like that. So all these dudes are absolute killers. I'm going with all these young bucks wrestling and stuff like that. So that's basically like what I got into eventually, was kind of like breaking everything down, and then talking about like more like recently, probably in the last year or so, we've been really focusing on still getting our specialized training in, but really bringing it all together and having sessions where we are mixing all of our components together and being true mixed martial artists, you know?
Absolutely. And that's one thing that it really seems like you are. This last fight could have gone either way. I know you competed against a guy from my home state of Michigan, Chaos Williams, and that fight was really, really close. That could have been your fight. I think I'm pretty clear that you felt a little disappointed in the judge's decision, but the bottom line is that was really close. Did you feel that should have been more like a draw, or did you feel for sure you won, or what's your feeling? And I'm not trying to bring something up that you want to put behind you, because it is what it is.
You're good, man.
I appreciate it. What's your
Chaos won that fight. I'll give him that for sure. And I don't say that like he beat. I didn't think he like ran away with the fight or anything like that. But the dude was smart, and he obviously learned a lot from his last fight too, because that dude poured out an extremely high amount of volume, especially for a guy like him who's like a power striker and he can hit like a truck. So. Yes. Full credit to him, man. He was just more active than me. He took more chances. He had some control time on the cage, and I was a little asleep in that fight. I guess that's like the best way that I've kind of like, I guess like wrap my head around it.
Right.
It's kind of a little asleep in the fight. And I never really woke up. If I did, it was kind of towards the end, and it was a little bit too little, too late by then.
Right.
So yeah, but no, I think he definitely, in terms of like the points and stuff like that, definitely won the fight. But in terms of like landing the cleaner shots, I think I was landing the more clean shots. I was a little bit more accurate than him.
Yep.
But it was a disappointing fight for me, man, because I know I'm a lot more active than that, and it was a strange kind of headspace I was in, and it's one of those things where I think it did have to do a little bit with some things that were going on personally outside of the gym and in the cage, but that's one thing. I mean, I'm still young. I'm still learning, and I'm still growing as a man. So I do believe I've gotten over all that stuff, and I think losing to Chaos, you know what I mean? It motivated me and lit a whole new fire in me to get back in a bigger way. And for sure, man, I want to go in and just tear shit up this fight. And hopefully down the road, man, maybe I'll get another crack at Chaos. I would love to fight him again down the road for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I like that attitude, and I like everything you said there. It was a super close fight. When it came to the judge's decision, I didn't know which way it was going to go. I think sometimes you can tell when the guy who wins the decision is screaming super loud and jumping. He probably didn't know which way it was going to go as well, right? You know what I mean? So, because he was all excited. But yeah, that was a really good fight, and I'm really impressed by the attitude you have on it. And yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes, not that you said this, but sometimes one guy can be a little bit off his game, and another guy can come out and be like fighting better than he's ever fought before, and that can bring a circumstance where a guy who may not necessarily be the better fighter, you know, wins the decision. But you know, that's my words. I know you're not saying that, but yeah, I'd love to see that fight again, because that, you know, you're just on a good streak before that with 5 wins in a row. That fight was razor thin, and I'm really impressed with some of the things you do. I've had several amazing fighters on our show, but the two that come to mind that are super respectful guys and really talented are Benil Dariush, who's in the weight division below you, and Vicente Luque, who's in your weight division. And
yeah, right. Both fighters that I enjoy watching, and am extremely big fans of their styles, and obviously of their how they carry themselves as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I really feel that you're kind of like a bird of a feather with those guys, like they say. You've got the respectfulness about you, you're focused, you're talented. One of the things there, I had a couple of acquaintances that fought you in the last couple of years. And each time I was thinking, man, this guy's gonna beat this guy, Matthew Semelsberger. And it's like all you did was just frustrate the guy that I knew. And I was like, man, what the heck, man? How does this, when is this guy Matthew gonna gas out? When is he gonna make a mistake? When is he gonna, do something that's negative? And it just seems like, you're on point, man. You know your stuff. One of the things that impresses me, like Vicente Luque and Beneil Dariush, is you've got a really good chin. You've got a good fight IQ. You're a young, strong guy at 28 years old. Those guys are both, I think, a little bit older than you. But you have a really good cardio as well. And I think if a guy's got those things, a good chin, good cardio, and a good fight IQ, it makes guys like that hard to beat. Because you've got to do something really special, because a guy like you is not going to make a mistake. And a guy like you is not going to just get punked with a shot because you have a good chin. And I think these things are part of the nucleus that make for great fighters. And, what else would you say that you believe is something that's really important to make a really successful MMA fighter?
I mean, it's got to be your reason why you're there, man. It's like what's your why? It's a pretty cliche thing to say, and you hear it a lot, but it's like when you really truly believe in why you're there and the people and the reasons you're doing it. I think that's almost like what gives you like a superpower, man. Like you can train like as focused and as smart as you can, but you know what I mean? There's like that this is why MMA is such like it's like a game changer, man. It's like so unlike any other sport. Is you can have somebody who's just so technically sound, and then but you could have another guy who just has like just a fire in his soul, man, and that can win him the fight. It really can. Technique is king. You know what I mean? Your tactic is definitely king overall, but I think that big difference makers in fights, especially when you have two fighters who are very technically sound and who don't make a lot of mistakes. It's like that heart component, that soul component becomes pretty much the difference maker, man, really.
Makes sense. 2 more minutes we have with you, Matt, and then we'll wrap it up. First thing I'll ask you, give me maybe a short answer on this. If this guy Sano comes in and tries to pretend he's a Diaz brother and take that stance where he's like sticking his chin up and trying to bait you and talk trash, and if he comes in there, does a complete Nick Diaz with you, do you have a plan for that? Obviously it's not going to throw you off, but do you have a thought? And I don't want you to give away any secrets you don't want to give away, but what do you think might happen as far as what you want to share if all of a sudden he goes complete Diaz brother on you in there?
I'll put it this way, man. I never talk outside of competitions. It's just not who I am. But inside of a competition, that's a different story. Whether it's a football game, fight, whatever, and I've had this in fights where people are talking shit during a fight or talking shit during a game, I will gladly engage in some chirping during a competition.
Right. Nice.
In the fun of it, right? But outside of it, I'm not having any of it. So,
right, for sure.
I'll keep my stoic, my reserve. You know what I mean? I'll keep all my stuff under control. But in the fight, that's a different story, man. That's when I let the beast out. So
I like it. And whatever he could do is not going to throw you or piss you off to take you out of your game, right?
Yeah, nah, man. I'm old enough now, man. And I've, you know what I mean? I'm still young and I'm learning a lot, but I've been through a lot, and emotionally, it's been a roller coaster of a life, man. So that's probably why I have a good self-control and I have a good head on my shoulders, man. So I can kind of just brush all that shit off.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, man. What's the best social media place to support you, and what's your handle?
So I'm on IG and Twitter mostly, and it's just Semi The Jedi.
Nice. And it's pronounced Semelsberger, right?
Yeah, Semelsberger. People get caught up they go Semelsberger, and then it sounds weird. So you just say it fast. Semelsberger.
Right.
Semelsberger.
Excellent. You like going by Matt or Matthew, or it doesn't matter?
Either or, man. You guys can just call me Semi if you want to.
I like it. Semi the Jedi, that great nickname. Appreciate that, man. Well, Matt Semelsberger, really appreciate you coming on. I've been a fan for a little while now. It's good to know you, and definitely cheer for people that I know, and you seem like a great guy, man. I know you'll do well. I would hate to be your opponent in this next fight. Look forward to great success from you, man. Best of luck. Go knock 'em dead, man, a week from Saturday.
Appreciate it, brother.